Welcome to the channel of Softlight. I received this brand new lens, Nikon 24-120 S lens, f4 S lens yesterday, and did some testing, both video and still. It turns out this is a very good lens, phenomenal. It's optical quality here. I want to go through some basic stuff with you guys. First of all, the filter range is 77 millimeters. This is very useful. You know why? Because a lot of professional lenses back in the day were all in 77 millimeter diameter for the front filter ring. And because, you know what, we get a lot of old filters. This is a Nikon 77 millimeter NC filter, neutral color filter. I only use Nikon filters. And guess what? This thing, I think I bought somewhere either 2004 or 2005. It has been on a number of lenses that I have sold, but if you buy quality filters, you can use them for good. As long as you don't drop them, you don't damage them, and so that is reusable. Okay, I'm gonna put this back on. First of all, this lens has very useful focal range. Compared to 24-70, somewhere you wish you can go a little bit longer in certain situations, but 120 is telephoto, 24 is wide angle. So it covers very useful range if you're a travel photographer, or if you want to only carry one lens, you can do all the sort of shooting. And this is one, because if you put your Z camera, such as high-res cameras like Z7 II or Z7, into the so-called crop mode or DX mode, these numbers gets timed by 1.5. So in other words, 24 becomes 35 millimeter, and 120 becomes 180 millimeters in the crop mode. So in other words, it's very versatile. It's kind of like 24-200, that sort of thing. The good thing about this thing is it's not heavy. It's not heavy at all. Yesterday I weighed it. It was, I think number is 666 gram, or 10 pound, 7 or 8 ounces. So in other words, that's quite doable. Just carry one lens if you want. And this thing is going to allow you to do a lot of shooting, from poetry, wildlife. It's sort of on the stretch, but can be done. And it's mostly landscape and travel photography. So that is very good. One thing about this lens is it comes with this command ring by default. If you don't do any settings in camera by default, it defaults to aperture. So what that means is if you touch this during the shooting, particularly in the video mode, you don't hear any sound from the clicks when you change your shutter, change your aperture. So this is silent. Secondly, if you don't shoot video, you want to change this to something else, you can change it to something else. The focus ring is here. Focus ring. Very smooth, well damped, and silk smooth. And zoom ring, very, very good. Unlike 24-70, it doesn't have a park position, So for 24-70, you have to park in a certain position and twist it out of the position before you can shoot. Not on this one. This one is there. It has a lot of coating, and metal mount, metal. The rest of it is plastic. So that's why it's best of both worlds. By default, Z camera sets this lens to the so-called auto mode. If you go into your shooting menu, and which is the... Now let's talk about the shutter mode or shutter types. Z cameras shipped with 3 different shutter types. All right, the first one is mechanical, that's the traditional one, metal blades. And second one is called electronic front curtain shutter type. All right, so for short, electronic front curtain shutter has abbreviation. The abbreviation is EFCS. All right, so that's the second type. So in other words, the shutter has 2. The front curtain is electronic, and the rare one is mechanical. All right, the third one is so-called the silent shooting. When you do a silent shooting, when you set that in your camera, silent shooting, it changes the shutter to the so-called electronic. There's no moving parts involved. All right, those three shutters you need, if you're a serious photographer, you need to study the differences they can deliver. There's no one is better than the other. It all depends on the given situation, lighting condition, and so forth, and also how fast your object is moving. So this particular lens, by default, it defaults to the auto mode. Auto mode means the camera decides whether it's going to use mechanical shutter or the so-called EFCS shutter, the front electronic curtain shutter first. The camera decides. How it decides, what is the algorithms it uses, we don't know. So one thing we know is, if you set your shutter type, which is under your custom setting menu in the so-called, I think it was the shoot display category, if you go down there, there's D5. That's what I remember, D5 shutter type. All right, so if you set your shutter type to the electronic front curtain shutter, EFCS mode, guess what? Your camera's shutter speed will be limited to maximum to 1/2000th of a second, regardless which mode you select. You can be in a manual mode, you can be in a shutter priority mode, you can be in professional mode or P mode or whatever mode. All right, the camera defaults to the maximum shutter speed you can use is 1/2000th of a second. All right, so what I suggest to you, unless you definitely need EFCS mode, you know what you're doing, given the situation, condition, and speed of your objects, you select that. Otherwise, leave it auto on the auto mode. Secondly, the camera has the lens has two control parts you can control. By default, the command ring defaults to aperture. So in other words, you can turn the same left and right, increasing or decreasing aperture setting silently, which is a godsend for video shooters. Secondly, there is a lens function button. By default, it's off. But you can maybe program this to something like, by pushing this, you can view the image in the viewfinder or the LCD without having going through the menu, or something else. All right, so those are the two things you can do. You can also program aperture, the command ring to something else. There's tons of options available in camera. 70, the prior version, I also own the prior version, 70 to 24 to 120 f4 VR lens, that's AFS lens. The minimum focus range for this one is only 30 centimeters or 0.03 meters. So that is phenomenal. It was, I think the old one, this new one is only 1/3. The minimum focus distance is only 1/3 of the AFS version. If you compare to 70 to 200 f, 2.8, the latest version, that was even longer. I think that was close to 5 feet for minimum focus point. So this is a phenomenal job Leica has done. I have done some tests. The shots are very sharp, nearly from edge to edge. And I don't know how they pull this out, but they pulled it off. So guys, if you are on the fence about this is the saying that you won't regret. All right, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.